Hello everyone, Alliestrasza here. So the year of the Griffin is upon us, and with that brings the new core set, something that I've wanted from Hearthstone for a very long time. So this video is going to be all things related to the core set. That includes a review of the new 29 cards that are going to be included, cards that have changed, have gotten buffed, all of the cards that will be leaving standard. In addition, we'll discuss what cards are coming back from Wild. Before we get started, I just want to clarify that when the year of the Griffin goes live, the basic and classic set will rotate to Wild in the legacy set, and the new 235 core cards will be automatically added to your collection for free. All right, without further ado, let's get started. And if you do happen to like this video, it would mean a lot to me if you gave it a thumbs up and considered subscribing to the YouTube channel. All right, enjoy the video. So there were 23 brand new cards that we've never seen before added to the core set, so let's go over them now. Starting out with the Priest cards, we've got the Crimson Clergy, the new 1-drop for Priest. Now, I will say that the Clergy does not seem as ridiculous as Northshire Cleric, obviously, but there was a reason that Northshire Cleric had to be removed, as it was too high in power level. 1-mana 1/3s are always good for the stats, and Priest definitely has cards that do buff minions, like Apotheosis and Power Word Feast, that kind of thing. So, if you're playing a 1-mana 1/3 to get on board early, to be able to do stuff with it later, and it's got upside, I don't see why this is bad. It's just not as crazy as Northshire Cleric, and if it is the staple 1-drop of the core set, I can understand why people might be a little disappointed. Something to note is that Circle of Healing is not included in the core set, so that would have worked nicely there. However, it does say friendly character, so that's something to keep in mind as well. Overall, I think it's fine. And I'm sure if we're playing any priest decks that center around buffing minions up, it'll probably be included. Next, we've got the Focused Will, silence a minion, then give it +3 health. When I first read this, I thought it said friendly minion, but it's actually just silence a minion. So at the very least, it's a silence effect that can be randomly, generated from time to time with, priest cards. So, it could be an answer to something sticky like a Tyrion or, at some point. In discussing silencing our own minions to take advantage of the +3 health, there is the Humongous Razor Leaf that is going to be added back into the core set, the 3-mana 4/8 that can't attack. So there is definitely synergy for like Silence Priest and stuff like that, but typically Silence Priest really isn't that amazing. And when Silence Priest was good, I believe it was good with Divine Spirit Inner Fire, which is no longer an option. So I see this as just being like a silence card that the class has, and I don't know how useful it will be in an actual archetype. Some more priest cards here. Thrive in the Shadows, a shadow card. Discover a spell from your deck. So that is not discovering a copy. It is basically just tutoring a spell from your deck. It's all right. I guess it boosts consistency of drawing spells that you might really need in whatever type of priest deck you're playing. Not the flashiest of things. I guess it's slightly comparable to Shadow Visions, but much worse because you're not getting a copy of the spell. So it's a card. Next is the Shadowed Spirit. With the Death Rattle, deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. It's a 3-mana 4/3. I actually really like this card. I hope that there's some cool things that you could maybe do with it. We know that there's synergies with resurrecting minions in Priest, so I don't know if someone will come up with some crazy, burst with this card. It is 3 mana though, so it might be a little bit hard to pull off something like an OTK with this, obviously, but it's still pretty cool. 4 attack is aggressively statted for a 3-drop. I will say I'm still trying to figure out the identity of Priest, as they've mentioned a few times. I guess Shadow Form is dealing damage, and this is dealing damage too, so maybe there's something thematic there. But yeah, it's an okay minion, and maybe it'll be in a cool, aggressive priest deck. On to Paladin, we've got Pursuit of Justice, a new 2-mana holy spell. Give +1 attack to Silverhand recruits you summon this game. I think there's a possibility that Dude Paladin might be okay again, as it's getting a decent amount of support. At Madness at the Darkmoon Fair, there were definitely multiple cards printed to sort of support the, Dude Paladin. There's Day at the Fair, Balloon Merchant, Carnival Barker, and the legendary Lothraxian that gives your Silverhand recruits Divine Shield after you summon them. So with two of these Pursuit of Justices cast, that would make your dudes or your Silverhand recruits 3/1s. which is not bad. And if you combo it out with the Divine Shield and more buffs and things like that, it could honestly be kind of good, I think. One thing to say is that, typically Dude Paladin is a tempo-oriented deck, so obviously you want to be casting this as soon as possible on turn 2, which does give up some tempo, but I do think that the payoff could ultimately be worth it if enough support is thrown to the Dude Paladin archetype. So yeah, I actually think it's kind of a good card considering the other support that we see for the Silver Hand recruits in Standard right now. Next, we've got a new secret called the Reckoning. After an enemy minion deals 3 or more damage, destroy it. Honestly, I like it. I feel like it's one of those secrets that'll randomly pop up from time to time that you have to keep in mind to play around. I could see it being more annoying for certain types of decks, like maybe a big warrior or a big druid where they're generally only playing really high value minions. So playing around this secret in that situation would be pretty irritating. Most of the time, you're probably going to just be able to throw away something not as important to you. But it's just, it's a secret. It's one of those things that we're going to have to keep in mind to play around. But yeah, I think it's fine. On to the new Demon Hunter cards. We've got Ganarg Glavesmith, a 3-mana 3/2 demon with Outcast. Give your hero +3 attack this turn. 3-mana 3/2, not really the greatest in stats. Obviously, you're playing this card for the synergy of buffing up your weapon or your face. Truly, I don't think it's the flashiest of cards, but that doesn't necessarily mean I think it's that bad. We have seen archetypes of Demon Hunter that just center around buffing up your face as much as possible and smacking you in the head. So this could be included. Is it better than some other buff cards? Maybe not. But if some of those buff cards rotate out and you need more ways to buff up your weapon or your face, perhaps this will be included. So yeah, it's a fine card. Next, we've got the Illidari Inquisitor, an 8-mana 8/8 demon. Rush after your hero attacks an enemy. This attacks it too. I actually really love this card because me as a player, I really don't play much Demon Hunter, but the one archetype that I would be interested in playing is a big Demon Hunter because there's actually a decent amount of large statted demons in Demon Hunter, and this is perfect for it. An 8-mana 8/8 rush with a tribe of demon on its own isn't that bad, but with your hero power being so cheap as Demon Hunter, this could be really cool in a lot of ways. This is a card that I want to be good because I think a slower, more value-oriented Demon Hunter could be a ton of fun. Will it just be outclassed by the existing archetypes that Demon Hunter has now? Maybe, but I like the card nonetheless. And lastly, we've got Corvus Bloodthorn, a legendary with charge and lifesteal. After you play a card with Outcast, return this to your hand. So is Demon Hunter the only class that actually has charge minions now? I think it might be, because they're clearly getting rid of as much charge as possible, whether they're changing cards or not including charge cards in the core set. So maybe charge is just the Demon Hunter identity now. But this card is sort of comparable to Penflinger, right? It's a bounce effect that you can continually play. But I do think that Penflinger being 1 mana is definitely more significant. There's a lot more you can do with Penflinger in a turn being just 1 mana cheaper. However, this is more attack and it's lifesteal. So there might be some nasty things that you could do with this card. Truly, I'm not sure, but I would say we shouldn't discount this type of effect because certainly Penflinger was good and it can go face. It's got charge and it's got lifesteal too, and there's already a ton of lifesteal synergy in Demon Hunter. So maybe you could set up some really crazy Ignoth Bloodthorn turns potentially. Keep an eye on this card. I think there's a chance that it's problematic. On to the warrior cards. We've got the Warsong Outrider, a 4-mana 5/4 with Rush. No tribe, just a vanilla Rush minion. Sure, the 5 attack for 4 mana is definitely aggressive, could be good at answering certain minions in the mid game. Not too flashy or really much to say about it. Bloodsail Deckhand, it's a 1-mana 2/1 pirate with the battle cry. The next weapon you play costs 1 less. It's a 1-drop, it's got a tribe. Being a pirate, that would generally make sense in an aggressive style of deck that would most likely be playing weapons. So I think the deckhand is good. If Pirate Warrior is good again, I'm sure we'll see it in there. And then War Cache, 3 mana, spell, add a random warrior minion spell and weapon to your hand is bad. It's not good. It reminds me of that hunter card that sort of did a similar thing, which was bad. There are better things to do with 3 mana than randomly put stuff in your deck. It's bad. Mage has a new legendary minion, the 5 mana 5/5 Eowyn the Guardian. Sounds like Eowyn from Lord of the Rings. With spell damage +2 with the death rattle, the next minion you draw inherits these powers. I want to like it. I do. I just feel like it might be a bit slow. Spell damage +2 is certainly significant. We've seen that with the Imprisoned Phoenix. The thing about the Phoenix is you can set up a really powerful turn and your opponent cannot interact with it or kill it before you get to do that really powerful turn, unless you're priest with the Lucia, but that's besides the point. The fact that this is 5 mana, like you would either need to like do a really powerful turn with 10 mana in the late game, and there's also Sorcerer's Apprentice is getting rotated, so there's no mana reduction, and you know, passing the spell damage on to something else is super conditional with the death rattle. Yeah, I just don't think it's that good. Sadly, I love spell damage mage. You can let me know if you think I'm wrong though. I'm curious what you guys think. On to the Warlock cards now. First up, we've got the 0 mana Ritual of Doom. It's a shadow card. Destroy a friendly minion. If you had 5 or more, summon a 5/5 demon. Honestly, 5 or more to get a 5/5 seems relatively difficult. It depends what kind of support is given, right? Like if you have a card that like summons a whole bunch of 1/1s, there is the Fiendish Circle, which is going to be in the core set, which is 4 mana, summon 4 1/1 imps. It's okay. It's like really not that great of a card. And that doesn't even get you to the 5 conditions. So it's not like Zoo can't go wide, but for this to take up a whole card in your deck for the chance of getting a 5/5 demon, like, I don't know, it just doesn't seem that great. Obviously, it combos well with Nerubian Egg. Like, it's cool to trigger your death rattles by, you know, doing this, but I don't know if it's good enough for Zoo to really put it in their main deck, honestly. Next up, we've got the Fell Soul Jailer, a 5 mana 4/6 demon. With the battle cry, your opponent discards a minion and death rattle, return it. So this is kind of cool disruption for Warlock. Sort of temporary disruption unless you could silence it, I guess. But, you know, maybe there's a chance that Warlock becomes the, I don't know, the combo disruptor. If you've got Ticketus and the Fell Soul Jailer, you could be the disruptor of the meta with Warlock, but I would imagine that this probably won't be that great of a card, honestly. The Enslaved Fell Lord is the new 7 mana demon, 7 mana 4/10 with the taunt. Also damages the minions next to whomever this attacks. So it's got cleave, basically. The one reason I like this card is because it does fit into a slower Arcwitch Willow deck. Pulling this from Willow would be really good. It's got taunt, a high health taunt at that. Can't be deathed by priest, which is kind of cool. And yeah, cleave is really insane sometimes, especially against minion-centric decks. So honestly, I actually really like this card. On its own, I feel like it's really not that great. Like just dropping this on the board, you could probably be doing other more impactful things. But if you can cheat this out or resummon it in the late game, that kind of effect, I could see this being good in that specific kind of deck. On to Rogue with Vanessa Van Cleef. I'm assuming Edwin's sister? A 2 mana 2/3 legendary with combo. Add a copy of the last card your opponent played to your hand. I like it, Vanessa. I think she's cool. It'll definitely get people to play around with their order in the correct way, I guess. But I have to wonder how many rogues will actually keep this in the main deck. There's certainly Thief synergy there, as it would get you a class card right from something else, assuming you're playing against a non-rogue deck. But I guess it could go into Miracle style of decks. You know, Foxy Fraud is obviously still very good, but we're losing so many things. Like Questing Adventure isn't going to be in standard, neither is Edwin. Lackeys are going to be gone, which is good for like comboing things. So I just don't know where Vanessa will really go, because I don't think it would be put into aggro stealth type of decks. Like, this is just too slow and unnecessary for their game plan. So maybe slower but more value oriented rogue decks could maybe play this. I like her as a card, but I don't really think she's absolutely insane. On to a new druid card, Nordrassil Druid. It's a 4 mana 3/5 battle cry. The next spell you cast this turn costs 3 less. Truthfully, I'm not really that impressed with the card. I don't necessarily think it's bad. I just don't know if it would justify taking up a whole spot in a druid deck over something else. Like, I do think trading out mana can certainly be very powerful. On turn 6, you could play this with Arbor Up, right? And, get an extra body to combo with the Arbor Up, which I definitely think would be good. Don't get me wrong. I just don't know if it would be better than another card in the deck. You can kind of compare it to a Nubisath Defender, which, got reduced itself if you cast a spell that costs 5 or more. The reason why I think a Nubisath Defender is a little bit better is, one, because it had Taunt. Generally, just casting an Overflow or a Nourish, something that's sort of slow, and then being able to put a body on the board is really important. And it was defensive, right? This is just a vanilla 3/5 minion to combo with other things. Now, I don't necessarily want to say it's bad, because like I said, it does have some synergy. It's cool tempo to be able to drop this in the early game and maybe cast like a 3 mana spell, whether it's like a Fungal Fortunes or Bees or whatever cards are not rotating, right? I am hesitant to assume that this will be a staple in spell decks. It might be. I could be wrong. There's certainly cool things that you can stack with mana reduction for spells. So like there's Nature Studies, there's Lunar Eclipse. All of those cards could do cool things with this Nordrissel Druid, but I hold reservation that it might not be as good as it seems. On to the new Shaman 1-drop, the Novice Zapper. It's a 1 mana 3/2 with spell damage +1 and overloads you for 1. I think the Novice Zapper is really good. It's got the Flame Imp stats. It's got, great stats for a 1-drop, and it's got the added benefit of having the spell damage. You would not be able to, totem on turn 2 or, cast a turn 2 play, but I don't think that's the end of the world. You could always cast a Lightning Bolt. There's always Tour Guide to get the hero power out on the following turn. Like, I don't think the overload is that much of a detriment, and it certainly could be used, in later turns if you were trying to be some kind of burn or spell damage shaman. So aggressively statted 1-drop, synergy with spell damage. Yes, I definitely think the Novice Zapper is a fantastic 1-drop to be added for the Shaman class in the Year of the Griffin. The last new card is a Hunter card. It is a 2 mana 1/1 with the battle cry, discover a copy of a beast in your deck. So anytime that there is discovering a copy, getting an extra copy of something, and it's very targeted, so in this case, it's a beast. That combination there's always potential in my mind. The fact that you can look for something and get an extra copy. So say it's a King Crush. I mean, that's one of the first things that comes to mind just because it's, a legendary, so you can't have a second copy. And, obviously Smorking Face is good. The fact that it is cheap as well means that in the late game, you could play it, discover an expensive beast that you want, and then play it in the same turn. We don't really know all of the new beasts that are going to come out and Forged in the Barrens. So, if there is a really good beast to combo with this, this will certainly be utilized, I think. Moving on to a neutral legendary, Overlord Runthak. It's a 5 mana 3/6 with Rush. Whenever this attacks, give +1/+1 to all minions in your hand. So I think this is the first time that a hand buff card is kind of decent. The fact that this has Rush, meaning that, the effect is triggered immediately, gives me hope for this card. 5 mana 3/6, it's not the craziest stats in the world, but it's not the worst. And if you are playing a deck that could really benefit from having more stats to your minions, I'm sure you would put this in. And Rush is just a valuable mechanic in general, being able to answer the board. So I actually really like the Overlord Runthak. Next up, we've got Talon Forging, Tyrion's Son. He's a 5 mana 3/3 legendary with Taunt, Divine Shield, and the Death Rattle. Draw your highest cost minion. So at 5 mana, a 3/3 Taunt, Divine Shield, it's not bad, it's defensive, it's okay, but the real power in this card comes from the tutor effect in the Death Rattle. The decks that rely on the Yasharj or the N'Zoth or the Yogg, I'm thinking of all the old gods right now, but the Cthulhu even, the high-costed win conditions that are minions, this card will tutor for them, and that is really important. The fact that this can go in any deck as it's a neutral card means that I'm sure we're going to see Talon a lot, particularly particularly in those high value control decks that need to draw their expensive win condition. Next up is the Fog Sail Freebooter. It's a 2-mana 2/2 pirate with the battle cry, if you have a weapon equipped, deal 2 damage. It is a neutral card, so you can play it in any class, of course. It is conditional damage. You have to have a weapon equipped, but typically something that deals damage attached to the pirate tribe, being generally an aggressive tribe. This could do something. If pirate decks are good, this might be okay. I suppose, the fact that it is conditional isn't really the best, but, if you were playing an aggressive pirate deck, whether that be, I don't know, a rogue or a warrior, something along those lines, I'm sure you would have a weapon equipped a lot of the time. It's not doing a ridiculous amount of damage, so, I don't think it's too crazy, but if pirate decks are good, perhaps we'll see it in the meta. Next, we're going to discuss the cards that have been changed. So some are old from Wild, some are current. I'm going to go through these rather quickly, as this is more just so you guys have a visual display to know what's going on. So we're going to start off with discussing the neutral minions, and what better way to kick us off than discussing the most important neutral minions, obviously the dragon aspects, no bias at all. We'll start off with the new Ysera the Dreamer. She now reads with the battle cry, add 1 of each dream card to your hand. So you get a ton of value as soon as you drop her, instead of waiting to generate value over time with the old Ysera. Obviously, if the old Ysera lived for 10 turns, you'd be getting more value out of her, but that's unlikely. So I think it's fair to say that the new Ysera is actually a bit better than the old one. The dream cards have been changed. Dream now costs 1, and it cannot target your own stuff. That would be too crazy to just keep bouncing the Ysera, obviously. So now it's enemy only and changed to 1. Nightmare is +4/+4 attack and health. Ysera Awakens cannot go face, and Laughing Sister now costs 2 mana, and I believe that the Emerald Drake has not changed. It's still a 4-mana 7/6 dragon. So overall, really happy with the Ysera change. I think it's one of the better new dragons. And now, obviously, moving on to the next dragon, the best one, the new Alliestrasza. I, of course, was anxiously awaiting the reveal of the new Alex, and I gotta say, I'm overall pretty happy. The old Alliestrasza is my favorite Hearthstone card of all time, and I wanted the new one to sort of, reflect the old one in a way, and I think this is a pretty good solution. Alliestrasza the Lifebinder reads, choose a character. If it's friendly, restore 8 health. If it's an enemy, deal 8 damage. Enemy meaning you can hit them in the face for 8 damage as well, which I think is important because I don't think people realized that when they first saw her. Some people didn't realize it. In some ways, I almost think this is a little bit more flexible than the old Alliestrasza, just because sometimes you were in this awkward position where you've already done more damage to get them below 15 health, and you don't want to Alliestrasza yourself, but you still want to develop the 8/8 body on the board. So now, in this case, that's not a problem. The 8 damage can just be used as a finisher, or if they're already below 15, you don't have to be in that situation. And restoring 8 health is actually quite significant. You could always heal up a really important minion on the board. Maybe it's a taunt or something. In the situations where your opponent is still at 30 life, no, it's not going to be as good as dealing half their health. But I think that this Alliestrasza really does provide a lot of flexibility, and I definitely think we are going to see her in different decks. I mean, certainly I'm going to play her, but I'm a bit biased, so let me know what you guys think of the new Alliestrasza, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with her. Next, we get to discuss father and daughter here. The new Deathwing the Destroyer, now reads battle cry, destroy all other minions, discard a card for each destroyed. Purely better than the old Deathwing. Still don't think it's going to see that much play. It might. I mean, there's always the randomly generated Deathwings that come into play from time to time, but it's been a long time since Deathwing's actually been in a deck on its own. Yeah, even though it's better, I still think, you don't really want to be discarding a lot of your cards. There are better ways to clear the board. It's blasphemy. What am I even saying? But overall, I'd love to see Deathwing in some decks, but I just don't know if it'll really make it. But I'm happy it's a better version of the card. Now, Deathwing's daughter, Onyxia, actually really got a buff. She now reads, at the end of each turn, fill your board with 1/1 whelps. So that includes your opponent's turn as well. So Onyxia absolutely has to be answered. I'd love to see this as the top end of Token Druid or something like that. It still might, I mean, it's still a 9 mana 8/8, you know, and typically token decks are trying to end the game before that point, but it's still a huge threat that absolutely needs to be answered. So I've got hope for this Onyxia the Broodmother. It might not be good enough just because of the cost, but you know, I've got hope. Now taking a look at the new Malygos and Nozdormu. Malygos the Spellweaver now reads, draw spells until your hand is full. I feel like Malygos is really the one that got hurt the most. It's just not the same as, you know, having a crazy spell damage ability. I'm honestly really going to miss the old Malygos. I know it's been problematic in the past, but I just always enjoyed the Malygos decks. So draw spells until your hand is full. There are certain decks, you know, that could utilize that. I certainly don't think it's that bad. You know, maybe if there's something very specific, there's like a certain archetype that really wants to just like tutor for, you know, a whole bunch of spells or one specific spell. You know, maybe this could be used, but overall, I don't think it's that amazing. Certainly not as good as the old Malygos. Now, Nozdormu, on the other hand, this Nozdormu is amazing. It's a 7 mana 8/8. Start of the game, if this is in both players' decks, turns are only 15 seconds long. I tweeted that we should all become Nozdormu mains, and I think a lot of you agreed with me. Clearly, this Nozdormu is epic. I'm certainly going to try to get some people on ladder wanting to play speed Hearthstone with me. Do I think it's a meme? Like, of course it's a bit of a meme. I mean, the original Nozdormu was a meme as well, but this time it's like a consensual meme, you know? Maybe there are some players that really, like, I don't know, their computer wouldn't allow it, or they had a certain disability or something, you know, where the 15 seconds like really didn't allow them to play the game. So this is way more fair, and you know, it gives us speed Hearthstone in a roundabout way. So I'm super happy that they printed this. I think it might be like one of my favorite cards from the core set for sure. These two elementals got changed. Baron Geddon now has 7 health, purely better. Arcane Devourer now has 12 stats instead of 10, with the most important part being a higher health stat line. These are some of the first cards that we probably all played with for the first time. Raid Leader now has 3 health. Storm and Champion is now a 7/7. Better stat lines for the High Inquisitor Whitemane as well as Cairn. Defender of Argus is now a 3/3, which I think is what it was a long time ago, so it's back to a 3/3. Minimage is now less mana and less attack, but I think that comboing off things with stealth and spell damage is probably just better being cheaper. BGH was the first card that I remember Crip complaining about when I first started playing Hearthstone, so it went from 3 to 5 to 4 mana now. And Gurabashi is now a 2/8. Baron Stablehand now is a 5/5 in stats. Still probably not going to be a super great card though. Blizzard does really not like charge minions unless you are a demon hunter. Stone Tuskboar and Bluegill Warrior both now have rush, but they did both get buffed by 1 attack stat line. Now we're going to move on to the class cards that have gotten changed, and what better way to start it out than with Jaraxxus himself. He is now a hero card that functions pretty much exactly the same. It still has, you know, the hero power of the 6/6 Infernos, but he's not a demon himself anymore, and he does not require your health to go to 15. He functions exactly like old hero cards with the gain 5 in the armor. I think Jaraxxus' time to shine is now. Jaraxxus was always strong, popping out the 6/6 Infernos, and he was almost playable, like so many times, you know, I threw him in Control Warlock decks and he was almost good enough. But now I believe that Lord Jaraxxus is going to be good. Control Warlock will be a thing again, and we will play Jaraxxus. How funny would it be if Jaraxxus is just like super busted and they need to nerf him? That would be so funny. But anyway, I'm super hyped about this. I hope you guys are too. Some other Warlock cards that got changed are Drain Soul. It is now 3 damage, not 2, with Lifesteal, and it's got the Shadow tag. And Siphon Soul is a 5-cost spell now. Lakari Fellhound now reads, discard your 2 lowest cost cards from the original discard 2 random cards. And Void Terror got a buff in stats. Now its health line is 4 instead of 3. With Warrior, Warsong Commander is not what it was originally. We'll have the classic format for that. So it goes from your charge minions have +1 attack to after you summon another minion, give it rush. Now we're going to discuss some rogue changes. Now you might be wondering, Allie, why did the background change? Well, these slides took me a very long time to make, and I started with these cards and realized that these are not forged in the Baron cards. They are from the core set. So consider this a preview of what the background of my Forged in the Barons card reviews will look like. Again, these took me a really long time to make, and I did not have it in me to go and fix them, so please forgive me, I am sorry. But moving on, Assassin's Blade is now a 4-cost weapon with 5 durability and 2 attack. This is definitely better in my mind. The durability is what's insane, considering there are many ways in Rogue to buff up the weapons, whether that be the new Nitro boost or Deadly Poison, that kind of stuff. And now Sprint is 6 mana instead of 7. Assassinate is down to 4 mana, and Patient Assassin got buffed by 1 health. Shadow Form is now 2 cost, and it is no longer that extra 3 damage if you had already cast Shadow Form. Light Spawn has been reduced to 3 mana, as well as a stat line to 4 health. Holy Light now restores 8 instead of 6, and Equality has been buffed to 3 mana from 4. Warhorse Trainer gets buffed by 1 attack stat to 3, and Argent Protector is now a 3/2. Paladin's Guardian Kings, I think, actually got one of the more significant changes. It gaining taunt as well as an extra health stat line makes it a reasonably good defensive card now. Warglaze of Azeroth is now a 5 mana 3/3 weapon, almost back to what it was originally. I think it was a 5 mana 3/4 weapon, and then it got nerfed. But now this is what they've ended on, so hopefully this is a good happy medium between the old and the new. Flame Strike now does 5 damage. Cool. Snap Freeze has been changed to 1 mana from 2, and Cone of Cold has been changed to 3 mana from 4. Kuldara Drake got an extra health stat line, and Ethereal Conjurer is now a 6/4. Ethereal Conjurer was always one of my favorite cards to play with, and I think it going to a 6/4 is actually reasonably significant, so I'm excited about that. On to Hunter. Tracking got way better. Tracking was always that good card that just felt awful to play, and now it is just better. You don't have to get rid of any of your cards. So it now reads, discover a card from your deck. Thank goodness. And Lock and Load has been changed to 1 mana from the old 2 mana cost. The Nature tag got added to Mark of the Wild, as well as it gives +3 health from the old 2. And Cenarius got buffed to 8 mana from 9. Menagerie Warden is now a 5 mana 4/4. And Druid of the Claw got better stats all around. So the base is now a 5/4, and the Rush is still a 5/4, as well as the Taunt becoming a 5/6. On to Shaman cards. Lightning Storm now does a consistent 3 damage. Maybe they changed this because we're losing the spell power totem, but now we don't have to worry about getting lucky or low rolling, that kind of thing. And Alakir is now 6 health instead of 5. Feral Spirits now only overloads you by 1, and Draenei Totem Carver is a 4/5 instead of a 4/4, which I totally did not realize that this card existed. Apparently it's from the Grand Tournament, and I have absolutely no memory of it. But it could be kind of cool in Totem decks, I guess, now that we've got the Totem Goliath and stuff. So it'll be cool to see this card that's now a Yeti maybe see some play. Fire Elemental now deals 4 damage, and Earth Elemental only overloads you for 2 instead of 3. So maybe it'll see some play other than getting randomly summoned by Jandis Barov. Maybe. Another major change coming to the Shaman class is that the spell damage totem that we're used to is now becoming the Strength totem. So at the end of your turn, give another friendly minion +1 attack. All right, now we're going to discuss what cards are gone, what cards are out of the pool in Standard that we've been used to playing for probably years at this point. First up, we've got the selection of Demon Hunter cards that will not be playable in Standard anymore, the most notable being the Satyr Overseer and the Glavebound Adept, as those two found their way into aggressive style of Demon Hunter decks. Moving on to the Druid cards that are no longer. I want to bring your attention to these 3, as I think these are the most important ones that are leaving. Savage Roar definitely being the most notable. Savage Roar is a staple of token Druid decks, and token Druid is certainly very good in the meta right now. So it will be really interesting to see if token style Treant Druid can even survive without Savage Roar. There definitely are Savage Roar effects like Arbor Up and other cards in Standard, but losing Savage Roar is really significant. And I decided to include Swipe and Wrath as well here, just to bring your attention to it, as they've been staples of Druid for a really long time. Often they've gone into slower, like more spell-oriented Malygos type of decks, but Malygos is obviously rotating as well. Here are the rest of the Druid cards that will be rotating. If you want to take a closer look, you can just pause the video. Now on to Hunter. So these 4 cards, can you imagine playing Hunter without these 4 cards? I certainly am having a hard time imagining, but Kill Command, Animal Companion, Eaglehorn Bow, all very big staples of aggressive style of decks. We are no longer going to be able to complain about our opponent rolling Huffer every single time. Also, Eaglehorn Bow being a pretty huge staple in secret-oriented Hunter decks, which have shown over years that, Secret Hunter has found a way into the meta. So we'll see if Secret Hunter gets more support, and we'll see what other aggressive tools come up for the Smork class. And here are the rest of the Hunter cards that are also going to be leaving. On to Mage, my personal favorite class, and oh my God, I'm freaking out about what is leaving. Blizzard and Frost Nova are absolutely core to slow Control Mage, Highlander Mage. Obviously, we're not going to have Zephrys anymore, but you know what I mean. Slower style of Mage decks that win by casting Frost Nova Doomsayer, freezing the board until they can do something powerful. So losing those 2 hurts my soul a little bit. And we're also losing a lot of tempo cards too. Sorcerer's Apprentice has been such a huge part of Mage for forever. So those tempo style of decks with Sorcerer's Apprentice, Girl, with Arcane Missiles being huge in the meta right now, with the aggressive style of Mage decks as well as Frostbolt. Kirin Tor Mage, Secret Mage is also quite powerful right now, and Kirin Tor is always a part of that package. So Mage definitely lost a lot here, and I'm sad to see a ton of these cards go. So I hope that there are good things in store for Mage in the future. And here are the rest of the cards that will be leaving Mage as well. Pyroblast, Archmage Jansenitis, big sad. Moving on to Paladin. So going over the Paladin classic and basic cards made me realize how bad so many of them are. These are the 4 that I thought were the most notable, but they're really not even that notable. Blessing of Wisdom's in the meta right now, and I have a soft spot for Lay on Hands because I like Control Paladin, but in general, these are the most notable, and I'll show you guys the other ones. And here they are. The rest of the Paladin cards that will be leaving, most of them not very impactful on the meta at all. Priest. These are the 4 cards that I think we see the most Thoughtsteal in slower control decks. Shadow Madness is like a card that you always kind of want to play around because it can randomly pop up in Priest. Cabal Shadow Priest often just appears when Zephrys is involved, but still sometimes people run it, and Shadow Word Pain has always been a staple of Priest. Here are the rest of the Priest cards that will be leaving. Maybe notable, Mind Control and Silence. You won't have to play around those anymore. These 2 cards are the most notable ones leaving from Rogue, in my opinion. Aggressive style of Rogue decks are really popular right now, and Eviscerate is just a house for those kinds of decks. And of course, Sap always being a huge part of the Rogue identity, no longer playable. And here are the rest of the Rogue cards that are leaving as well. Onto Shaman. So similar to how losing Savage Roar is really crucial for Druid, I think losing Bloodlust is probably the most significant card for Shaman, as it is sort of the top end, the finisher for those totem Shaman decks or just aggressive Shaman decks in general that go wide on the board. And in conjunction with Totemic Might here, I think that's generally the most popular aggressive Shaman deck, is the ones that are centered around totems. So Totemic might not be the flashiest of cards, but it is still, I think, significant to lose for that archetype. And Lava Burst, we've really seen a lot of spell damage and burn Shaman support in the last expansion or 2, so losing Lava Burst is certainly very important as well for that archetype. And here are the rest of the Shaman cards, also maybe notable Earthshock, Flametongue Totem, Farsight, definitely good cards that will no longer be playable in Standard. Now on to Warlock. So Warlock actually lost a decent amount of cards, but Voidwalker and Soulfire definitely the most impactful staples of Zoo. I do think that Zoo will survive because I think it's getting a reasonable amount of support with some of the new stuff. Nerubian Egg is also coming back, which is always really good in Zoo. But Voidwalker, premium 1-drop for the Zoo decks. Soulfire also being a huge loss, as it is perfect for the Zoo decks for extra burn. Also notably is that it combos so well with the discard synergies that Warlock has always seemed to be given, particularly something like Hand of Gul'dan being an absolute house of a card. Here are the rest of the Warlock cards that we are losing. I think that Warlock comes in first place for losing the most amount of classic and basic cards at 15 cards. Finally, we've hit Warrior as the last class that we are going to discuss here. Shield Block always combos well with Shield Slam, and Shield Slam is still going to be included in the core set, but a lot of what made Shield Slam really good was Shield Block. So definitely very huge for slower control warriors to lose Shield Block. Kor'kron, Inner Rage, Battle Rage, they all were included in those Enrage style of decks with Risky Skipper. Kor'kron being included into aggressive warrior decks throughout time. Inner Rage comboing really well with Grommash. Grommash is still in the core set, but it does hurt to lose Inner Rage there. And Battle Rage was a little bit more impactful recently with Risky Skipper, but still significant to lose. The rest of these warrior cards we don't really see too often. Okay, so there's a lot of neutral cards that are leaving, so I've tried to sort of categorize them to help your brain process and not be a little overwhelmed. So hopefully that helps. These, I think, are some of the best cards that are going to be leaving or not going to be included in the core set. Questing Adventure, very important for rogues. Pyromancer, very important for Priest Apotheosis. Also, something to say about Pyromancer is that Equality is actually getting buffed from 4 mana to 3 mana, and Pyro Equality has always been a huge board clear for Paladins, so we will no longer be able to do that. There are still a decent amount of Murlocs that are kept in the core set, but we're losing War Leader, so it's a little confusing, but I guess I'm not too sad to see War Leader go, just because we've been playing with Murlocs for forever. Dread Corsair over there, definitely big in weapon decks for sure. Doomsayer, one of my personal favorites, very important for control decks, even though it hasn't been as popular recently. Knife Juggler, definitely huge in aggro Demon Hunter as well as other aggressive style decks. Saucy Deckhand, also important for aggressive rogues right now. Now we move on to the meme set of cards that are no longer playable in Standard. Might make you a little depressed to see Gruul go. Millhouse Manastorm not being able to randomly be summoned. Angry Chicken, it's so important to Hearthstone, obviously. Boulder Fist Ogre, a crowd favorite. Cho, also randomly popping out of stuff. And Hogger and Nat Pagel, important cards in Hearthstone's history, so farewell. Now here are the rest of the not as important neutral cards that are leaving. I hope I got every single one, guys. If I missed one or two, please don't yell at me. This was a lot of cards to make into a graphic, and now we'll move on to the second page. And here's the second page of all the neutral cards that are no longer included in Standard. Hopefully you guys can read this. I was very determined to fit all of the minions on 2 pages. Now we're going to take a look at some of the cards that are coming back into the core set from Wild. This is the selection of Druid cards from Wild that have made it into the core set. Enchanted Raven was definitely useful in token decks once upon a time, so I could see that being useful. Landscaping, there's a ton of Treant synergy right now, so maybe that could find its place. Frail Rage is just a solid card overall, particularly nice for some life gain. Pounce, maybe it'll do something. And Menagerie Warden, I think, is actually gotten a bit better because it's cheaper, and there are some decent beasts for Druid to copy, one being maybe something like the Twilight Runner. Here is the selection of Hunter cards that have made it back from Wild. Nice to see Dire Frenzy. I think that's always been a crowd favorite. Ton of people love that card, so I'm happy to see it back. Web Spinner definitely was good when I was playing with it. Quick Shot is really nice to see for those aggressive style of Hunter decks because we are losing Kill Command, so Quick Shot does fit into that slot really nicely. Bear Shark and Headhunter's Hatchet definitely could work if there's a lot of like beast-centric Hunter decks, but we'll see about that. And Lock and Load was always such a fun card to play with, so I'm happy to see it back with also a mana reduction. Mage has got some interesting cards back from Wild. Fallen Hero, Arcanologist, Shooting Star, Snap Freeze, Koldara Drake, Babbling Book, and Ethereal Conjurer. So Arcanologist was a fantastic card when it saw play in Standard a couple years ago. I'm sure it will still be great now. Shooting Star also could be really good considering all the spell damage support. Snap Freeze, Fallen Hero probably won't be too impactful, but it's nice to see Snap Freeze getting a buff. Koldara Drake was always a super fun card, so I'm interested to see if anything can come about with that, and it did also get buffed. The infamous Babbling Book is back, the card that decided a world championship. How can we not be excited that the Babbling Book is back? And Ethereal Conjurer was always one of my favorite mage cards, so I'm happy to see it got buffed as well. Paladin actually got some decent cards from Wild back in Standard here. Righteous Protector always was a really good 1-drop, and Avenge was arguably one of the best secrets ever printed. And Warhorse Trainer and Stand Against Darkness definitely are building that support for the Silver Hand Recruit Dude Paladin. We went over some cards earlier talking about how they're getting a lot of support, so I could potentially see it being a popular archetype in the Year of the Griffin. For Priest, Shadow Form and Flash Heal are coming back, both now with their own spell tribe, Holy and Shadow. The only card coming back from Wild from Warrior is Shield Maiden. So we are losing Shield Block, so that's definitely a hit to Shield Slam. I don't know if Shield Maiden necessarily is going to fit that Shield Block spot to kind of combo well with Shield Slam, but it's nice to see the Shield Maiden back in play. This is the selection of Warlock cards that are coming back from Wild. I would say that the Drain Soul is probably the best thing. Warlock loves healing, particularly slow, value-oriented Warlock decks, so I'm really happy to see that back, which essentially is just penance, right, from Priest. Possessed Villager is definitely good for Zoo. Fiendish Circle, it's probably not that great, but maybe it's possible. Lakari Fellhound and the Tiny Knight of Evil. If there is discard support, then those two definitely will be included in the deck. And here are the rogue cards that will be coming back from Wild into the core set. Swashbuckler and Tomb Pillager being the most likely to see play. Tidal Surge and Draenei Totem Carver are the only 2 cards coming back from Wild into the Shaman class. Here are the rest of the neutral cards that are coming into the core set back from Wild. My favorite probably being this guy, the Nerubian Egg. Seems like we might be getting some mech support here. Big Dragon Druid. This is the point at which I've been recording a little too long, so let's wrap this up. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this very comprehensive review of the core set, all the things that are happening and coming into it. This video, I'm not gonna lie, did actually take me quite some time, so if you did enjoy it or learn anything, get anything out of it, if you appreciated my video, it would mean a lot if you gave me a thumbs up and considered subscribing to the channel. I'm so excited for the core set. I said this at the beginning of the video, but I've been really wanting this to happen for a very long time. I played Magic for a little while and I loved the concept of this rotating core set of cards to keep the game fresh, and they're finally doing it, so I'm really excited. You can definitely expect card reviews from the new expansion Forged in the Barrens, so look out for that on my channel. And again, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.